Hey, listen up. I know we're not allowed to talk bad on Law. I know everyone likes Law. I like Law. You like Law. We all like Law. But we gotta be real about this, man. We really gotta be honest when we break down Law's devil fruit here. This guy can literally break the entire series and destroy everything that we know, and is by far the most broken character in the series. And in this video, I'm gonna be breaking down why. I'm gonna be breaking down the devil fruit. I'm gonna be breaking down what the story implications of the fruit are too. Just for a quick premise builder and to understand where I'm coming from. If you don't believe me, the Marines were willing to pay as much as 5 billion berries to buy the fruit from a pirate named Des Barrels over a decade ago in the story. And just for context, that is insane. That is a bigger bounty than both Law, Kid, and Luffy have today, and Blackbeard started pre-time skip just for a devil fruit. And in case you don't know and you're completely forgetting what it's called, the Ope-Ope No Mi Paramecia devil fruit. And let's just break down what he can actually do within the fruit. Basically, he creates a giant sphere, and within that giant sphere that is called the room, he can basically do whatever he wants. Now, let's break down some of the stuff we saw him do. First of all, the room can be pretty large, and especially what we see post time skip, it can get extremely big. I don't know the exact metrics. I don't think it really matters. Oda allows Law to make it as big as he needs for basically anything. I don't think it's ever been an issue where he couldn't make a room big enough. And through that, his ability called Amputate, this basically allows him to cut through anything without actually harming him. We saw him split apart bodies with this. This is pretty similar to Buggy's ability, and although we saw him use this against Virgo, he did of course kill Virgo, we think, in that instance. And this is what he uses most often, to sever people and really split them apart, and it's the most common ability you'll see Law use. This is also why Law is a surgeon technically, even though we don't see him do surgeon stuff anymore. This is what allows him to really be effective in that area. And then Radio Knife is a different version of this ability, which is basically kind of like the same thing, except he uses like an electrical shock within it. The regular attack, like I was saying, is not harmful. This is an entirely different story. This is definitely harmful. We saw him use this against Trouble. It's also a surgical equipment technically, but I don't think Oda is going to be getting really into the surgery, because I don't think any of us One Piece fans would really understand the surgical part of this whole thing. The other most common ability, and you've definitely heard Law say this, is of course Shambles. And this is basically allows him to swap places with people, and this is what he uses also. I would say you could argue he uses this more than Amputate, but you know, he does use this like a lot. Like, this is very, very common. And then we also saw him use a modification of this ability to switch souls with people, and honestly, I'm glad they're not doing that anymore. But if you think about it, if Law did use that more often, that could be incredibly overpowered, and I don't understand why Oda is introducing this and not allowing him to reuse it again. And in the instance he did use it, I really hated it in Punk Hazard. It was really annoying after the first couple episodes. I don't understand why he's not having him use it again. The next ability is called Takt, and I really have no idea if I'm pronouncing that right, and this is basically more of a telekinesis technique. We saw him use this with the G5 Marines on Punk Hazard as well, to kind of flip the ship in the air, and it was a really sick panel. The next ability is Scan, and very much so like it sounds, it allows him to scan anything in his room. I also don't really understand this ability too much, but as you can see, we're still not even done with all the abilities, and it's so broken. The next ability is called Mess, which allows him to take people's hearts out of their body, which is also a really broken ability. I don't understand why we don't see him use it more, but it is broken. We saw him do this to Smoker on Punk Hazard. Punk Hazard, as I'm going through this, is when Law was really flexing, man. Law was really him in this arc. If you guys want to help me flex too, you can drop that like. Let me know how I'm doing down below. Please drop some criticisms, and let's get back to the video. Counter shock is basically what it sounds like too. Law can basically use his hands like a defibrillator and basically just shock someone on some like Thor level stuff. I don't understand why we don't see him use this more too. I'm really going through these. Like, he has so many abilities, man. Then he have injection shot, which basically makes his sword like a gun, which is also an addition to that signature ability of his to cut objects. And we saw him do this against Kaido to injure him, and this was also like one of the first attacks he used against Treble and also on Dofi. This was a huge shot, and at the time was basically what seemed to be Law's strongest ability, till he of course used Gamma Knife, and this was his strongest ability at the time, which is like a short blade that stabs his opponent, and the technique basically destroys the opponent's inside and it doesn't leave any external wounds. So this essentially is Law using his surgical skill for evil and to be a complete menace. And then Law used Sturbin, which is called the Blade of Death, to defeat Treble, which is after his right arm got severed. He basically used it like a buzzsaw, as the wiki describes it. This is basically what he used to defeat Treble, as he just swung it up and down without actually having his arm connected to him. Law also has Curtain, which is basically like hockey in a way. It's just another layer of defense, nothing too crazy there. And that is all of his non-awakened abilities. Isn't that insane? Look at how strong he is without any awakenings. All of those techniques are way more than any other character in the series, and I don't understand why we don't see Law use it more. I know he has that stamina deficiency seemingly, but it's still pretty crazy, and I'm about to get into the awakened techniques now. K-Room is basically the room, but you just code it on an object and you allow that object to do whatever he wants. This is what we saw him use to extend his sword like crazy during the Big Mom fight. And then the next ability he has is Anastasia, and this is what also allows him to extend his K-Room for whatever his coded object is and increase the range for that coded object. Then we see him use Shock Willy, which is seemingly like Counter Shock, but with like an extended range that also fries the targets on the inside, but it's more of like a shocking way, and you can use this with a sword and it doesn't have to be his hands, much like the Counter Shock ability. Then we have Puncture Willy, which is what it's called when Law pinned Big Mom all the way down to the ground from Onigashima to Wano. This was what we saw. That just, it was the crazy panel, and I think it's Law's strongest ability too. This panel was insane and really gives you scope and really speaks to the name. He then has our room, which allows him to add a status effect to whatever the room is and basically can do whatever he wants. And in this instance, we saw him use Silent Room, which allowed him to make the room completely silent, which allowed Big Mom to not be able to hear them and hear what was going on, and no one could hear her. This was insane because it rendered Big Mom useless, and it's also just broken. Like, look at how many abilities he had. I don't know how long that part of the video was because I was going through them all like, Jesus Christ, when is this gonna end? It is endless and it's insane. It's absolutely crazy how many abilities he has, not to mention the big one that I'm sure all of you were wondering about the whole time, the fact that Dofi said that with Law's Fruit you can revive someone in exchange for your own life. Isn't that insane? You can basically give immortality to someone, and it's absolutely crazy the story implications that can have. Now that we're done with the abilities though, one of the things I want to talk about is I wonder if Oda regrets that. I wonder if Oda feels like he wrote himself into a corner with that, because we haven't seen anyone really mention it ever again. I didn't really expect anyone to, but at the same time, ability like that is stupid. Like, that is crazy given all of Law's other abilities, and his stamina deficiency, although there's panels alluding to it, his actions are not really reflective of someone with a stamina deficiency in any capacity. So I'm really interested to see if that's actually going to play into effect. And I know a lot of people say Law is not that broken. Oda has written that hockey does counter everything, but we haven't really seen too many characters do that besides Big Mom and Kaido. The big argument that's going to matter is, are the admirals stronger than the emperors or not, or the vice admirals? Because either way, if in any capacity, the big issue is you eliminate the whole hockey thing, then anyone who doesn't have a strong enough hockey to defend against Law should be instantly one shot. Like, there's no way that it should be even a competitive fight. As well as the fact that if the audience knows about Law's Fruit, it's going to remove tension away from Luffy and other things, and it could really break a lot of the stuff going on within the series. Like, we just saw everything that Law can do, and Law has so many abilities on top of the fact that he can revive someone. So we know that if Luffy is ever in a dire situation and Law isn't, or if they're getting overwhelmed, we know exactly what's going to happen. I wonder what's going to go on there. Oda could really throw us a curveball though, and Law uses it on someone else. But if it's a situation where Law doesn't use it at all, I think we would all just be like, dude, like, what the hell? Like, what was the point of all that? Law's abilities, I feel like, are broken to the point where it doesn't even make sense why people are being able to counter him. And on top of all that, he really does feel more like a supplementary fighter than like a really solo fighter. I wonder how much that's going to change going forward in the series. And nothing in the manga really reflected that, because as you know, and manga spoilers ahead, Law just lost to Blackbeard, so we have no idea, is Law even going to be in the story like that? We also don't know the long-term effects of his fight, how he lost or why he lost, but we can assume like the 2 Devil Fruit Blackbeard is enough to counter Law. But are these other characters, or is Law just out of the story now? There's so many questions that need to be answered, and Law has all of these abilities, and it would be really a shame if he's just out of the story now. It would really kind of just be like, dude, you gave him all of that to lose to the other most overpowered character in the series for what? with no real payoff of us seeing Law just go crazy. Now, maybe you disagree, maybe you don't, but let me know what you think down below. I personally think with all of Law's abilities, like there's honestly no way you can have a fight with Luffy or really with him have that much tension unless it's literally against Blackbeard or against Admirals. But I guess at this point in the series, that's what you should expect. That's who they should be fighting now, right? So with that being said, that's all I have for you today. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like, subscribe, and don't forget, we're just getting started, we're gonna stay consistent, and I'll see you in the next video.